All right, and welcome, my friend, to the next episode in the Red Delta Project podcast and live feed Q&A here on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, where we are simplifying fitness by taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise, giving you more power, control, and freedom over your healthy lifestyles. Always Matt Chevrolet here, co-pilot here, and founder of the Red Delta Project. Today's episode is brought to you by NOSC suspension calisthenics training equipment, what I always recommend. Best designs out there, very affordable. Link is down below in the show notes as I'm making my book on suspension calisthenics, the definitive manual on how to build muscle and strength with things like rings and suspension trainers like the TRX. That's what I'm using in all of my references and my images and stuff that I'm putting in the book as well. I've recommended them for years now. So today's topic is all about plateau-proofing your workouts and your training. This is one of the most frustrating things that I get emails on a frequent basis, and I'm always updating this type of information as I'm learning more, because it's a very convoluted, a lot of nuance to this sort of thing. It's not nearly as simple as, well, just do more reps or just add more weight to the bar. I remember years ago I was talking with someone once, and they were saying, I don't know if I should get a coach for my workouts. And I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe you know plenty of what you're doing. And I was like, well, what's your progression strategy with what you're doing to get stronger and build muscle? It's like, well, I'll just add weight to the bar. I'm like, yeah, you definitely need a coach. You have no idea what you're doing. It's like, well, isn't that how you progress? Sort of. But the key here, the number one lesson that I want you to take away from this episode is that progression happens in many different directions. If you have one solitary direction of, I'll just add weight to the bar, I'll just do more repetitions, or I'll just add weight or add repetitions, you have a very limited scope on how to improve and progress over time. And you're going to hit a plateau very quickly. And I mean, very quickly might be months, maybe even a year or two, but that's in the grand scheme of a good training career, very, very quickly. And no matter how hard you work, you're not going to be able to overcome this, because what that approach basically is based on the idea of, well, I'll just work harder. I'll just add more to the workout, which is great when you're a beginner, but you cannot scale hard work. Instead, you have to learn how to work smarter rather than harder, because you only have so much time, so much energy, so much effort, and so much stress that you can place upon your body before you hit a wall. And then there's no way in hell you're going beyond that. Now you're stuck in a proverbial rut that's not just a plateau where you're not going to get better results, but you have to work as hard as humanly possible just to stay where you are. You've effectively had a dead end approach to your workouts, kind of like getting stuck in a dead end job. You can't stop, but at the same time, there's no reward to continuing going other than just keeping where you are. So there's a couple of ways we need to frame our workouts in this plateau thing, because on one hand, plateaus are inevitable. And as I've said in previous episodes, most people who have long training careers will tell you that you're going to spend the vast majority of your time not making a whole lot of progress in your workouts. When you hear things like on the workouts and social media and stuff, it's like, oh, add this much weight to the bar and lose this much weight and add these many reps and build this much muscle. Most of that is referencing the very initial period of your training career when you're making that regular progress. Think of like an airplane taking off. All right, when you take off from the runway, you're aware of like, wow, we're gaining altitude. Whoa, we're really getting altitude. Oh my gosh, I can look down out the window and I'm getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. This is great. But of course, you don't just keep going higher during the airline flight. You reach a cruising altitude and you're going to spend the majority of your flight roughly at cruising altitude, and you kind of go up and down a little bit here and there throughout the cruising altitude. The same thing happens with the duration of one's long training career. You're going to have that initial progress. You're going to be making all sorts of gains in your height, if you will, and then you're going to reach a cruising altitude, and we think, oh my gosh, what's wrong? It's like, actually, that's where most people spend the majority of their time in the duration of their training career. And that's even if you get that far. Most people, I would even say, don't get to that cruising altitude, because a lot of times we approach exercise in a kind of a, oh, I'll try this for a while and see what works out. And as a result, we do things for roughly 6 months or so, maybe even a year or two, and then we fall off. And then we try something else for a while, and then we fall off. So this is why a lot of people get stuck in the proverbial beginner stages of their training careers, because they're always doing something new and different every 6 months or so. And on paper, it looks like I've been making progress for years. Yeah, but you keep taking off and then landing immediately afterwards. And that's why you keep, quote, gaining altitude or making progress, is because you keep returning back to baseline. It's like the old joke of the person who says, "Oh, I've lost over 70 pounds." Like, you look at him, you're like, "Really? You still got quite a beer gut there." It's like, "Oh no, I lose 10 pounds and then I regain it. And then I lose another 10 pounds and then I regain that and I lose." And it's like, I've lost a total of 70 pounds, but it's always the same 10 pounds every single time. And so that's what the sad state of a lot of people when it comes to their training careers is. No one ever gets beyond those initial stages. And that's why a lot of the marketing rhetoric about our expectations, because remember, most of our beliefs about how fitness works has nothing to do with truth or science, is based on marketing. We believe most of what we believe about how fitness works is based on marketing and advertising and the messages therein, not in reality. Because when I tell people, yeah, you're going to spend most of your time not making a lot of discernible progress in any sort of training career, they're like, "No, that's not how it's supposed to work." Yeah, that's what the marketing tells you. The marketing is all about, you can lose 30 pounds, you can build all this muscle, you can make all this progress, because the marketers have figured out there's no market to trying to sell people who've been training for 10 years, because they already know what they want. They already know what they're doing. They already know kind of where they're baking their bread, so to speak. But most people are always stuck in that perpetual beginner cycle. And when you're stuck in that cycle, you're always buying new stuff, new equipment, new programs, new supplements, new gear, new this, new that. And you stay in that beginner cycle. And that's where the real money's to be made. And that's why a lot of the marketing messages are all about, you should always be making progress, because it's not geared at the more advanced individual. It's geared at the beginner. So when we're talking about plateaus, in some ways, we want to recognize that I'm not making big, huge, discernible progress like I did for the first 6 months or even the first year or two of my training career. What's wrong? It's like, welcome to the more advanced stages, my friend. Welcome to how training is for most people. You look at anybody on social media and you look at their physique and you look at their numbers and you look at their performance and stuff. Most people never get very far beyond a certain point, simply because progress, you just can't scale it. You're going to have a certain amount of quick progress, like quote unquote beginner gains. And then you're going to have this point in your training career where, yes, of course, you can always make progress, but at the same time, it's not going to be like that initial stage. So we've got to set up that expectation. Now, on one hand, that sounds like, well, you're always going to be kind of in this plateau middle sort of area where you're not making progress. But at the same time, we have to recognize the old adage that the only thing constant in life is change. The reality about fitness is that we're always changing. Technically, if you look at the state of your human body, you're never plateaued. You're always in an adaptive state. You're always adapting. You're always changing. You're always having some sort of modifications going on to your body 24/7, and that's going to be the case until the day you die. But most of us aren't aware of these things because they're too slow, they're too gradual, and sometimes they're just too small to really notice. So let me give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I hurt myself skiing, and my left knee got all kinds of jacked up. So I haven't been able to really do any serious leg training for the past couple of weeks. My body is adapting to that. In some ways I'm losing, some ways I'm gaining a little more strength, a little more stability in my right leg because I'm using it more. Every time I'm getting up off the floor, I'm using my right leg. It used to be my left leg. So my lower body is constantly in this changing state according to the new circumstances that are an injured knee. And once that gets better, it's going to start changing again now that once I can get my leg back to working at a normal pace. So on one hand, this plateau thing is weird because yeah, you're not going to make a lot of big discernible changes past the initial stages in your career. But on the other hand, you're always changing, and there's technically no such thing as a plateau. As the old adage goes, you never step in the same river twice. Your body's never in the same condition twice. It's different now than it was yesterday in some way, shape, and form. It's going to be different tomorrow. And the reason why fitness works isn't because we're making change happen to the body. It's actually technically impossible to make the body change. Instead, the reason why diet and exercise works is because we're going to take that natural process of adaptation that's always happening on autopilot. You don't control it. And we're simply directing that process in the direction we want it to go. That's what's really happening when we do our training and our exercise. And today we're going to be talking about strategies on how you can do that, so you're always kind of directing it in the direction you want to go. But anyway, we're got some great people coming on in. Michael from Drop Weight Daddy here. Dave is here. It's good to see you, and talking about Indian clubs. Make sure to get in touch with Michael here. He's been making his own Indian clubs on his Instagram. Definitely check him out. Jamie's here, Sniff Rat. Oh, fantastic. Everybody's here today. So one of the big mistakes that people make when it comes to making progress is they have a very limited scope of progression. What I mean by that is like the individual I was talking about, the story I referenced earlier, where I was like, well, what are you going to do to make progress? And they're like, well, I'll just add weight to the bar. Okay, that sounds great, but that's going to be a very short-lived way to make progress there. It's not going to be very good. Or in the calisthenics field, one of the more common ones is, what are you going to do to make progress? I'll add reps. I'll do more push-ups. I'll do more pull-ups. I'll do more squats. Like, okay, fine. But what are you going to do when that's done? Like, you can't do that indefinitely. You can't just keep adding repetitions to things. I remember one time I created a course. I was going to get into a little bit of like running in my neighborhood, and I created a course around my neighborhood that I would run. And when the first time I did it, I think I did the course in 19 minutes and 30 some odd seconds. I was like, okay, there's my benchmark, time to beat that. And over the next several months, the time kept dropping and dropping and dropping. It was like 19 minutes, and then 18 and 17 and 16. It's like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm making progress. This is great, kind of thing. But inevitably, I just couldn't run it faster. I think it was so frustrating because my goal was to get to 15 minutes, under 15 minutes. And the best I could ever do was 15 minutes and 3 seconds. I mean, I'd be like hitting my hand in the lawn afterwards going, come on, I just need 3 seconds. Give me, and it would be like 15 minutes and 8 seconds, 15 minutes and 7 seconds. Like, come on. I never was able to break that. But in hindsight, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, what are you going to do? Just keep running faster? You're not going to be able to do that route in 5 minutes. You can't go faster than the speed of sound. At some point, you're just not going to be able to run this course faster, Matt. And it's the same thing. You just cannot keep adding weight to the bar. You just cannot keep doing more repetitions, nor should you. Because as we'll explore a little bit later, when we have a very narrow scope of progression, not only does that set you up for a plateau, it even jeopardizes your overall progression as a whole. Because in order to keep that one aspect of progression going up, you compromise in other areas. And this is why there are some people out there who actually do have, quote, impressive numbers, but they're actually weaker. But they're actually compromising their strength or their speed or their endurance because they're compensating in so many ways in order to pad that one number. So they think they're going forwards when in reality, they're actually going backwards and regressing. Let's get to a couple of questions here. Dave is asking, hey, Matt, speaking of leg training, are sissy squats worth doing with a limited range of motion or more squats? Oh, I'm such a big fan of sissy squats. Gosh, I love those. It's killing me right now that I'm not doing sissy squats because of my leg injury from skiing. Love sissy squats. In fact, in some days, I will spend more time doing my sissy squats than actual regular conventional style squatting movements. So yeah, partial range of motion is one of the ways to progress sissy squats. Fantastic. And that is what we can certainly, I'm getting ahead of myself when it comes to multiple stages of progression. But yeah, definitely limited range of motion is fine. I mean, hell, you're talking to a guy who practices isometrics with 0 range of motion. You could have an exercise with no range of motion whatsoever, and it's still potentially effective. Because remember, the only thing that is necessary for an exercise to be effective is muscle tension. As long as you have muscle tension, it's doing something. And every aspect of progression is just a variable of how much tension is in the muscle and how long is it there for. Time and tension, the two fundamental elements of our strength and conditioning program. So yeah, definitely short range of motion is perfectly fine. Emma K coming on here as well. Hey, Matt, started to focus more on my range of motion, and we're talking more on that, and feeling which muscles are the ones engaging in each exercise. Outstanding. I still have trouble understanding how to make mind-muscle neuro connection. Sounds like you're doing it right now. People like to overthink this one big time. It's like, it's got to be some complicated thing. It's got to be something that's really technical and advanced and stuff. No, it's literally how well can you engage your muscle. You know, a lot of times when people talk about mind-muscle connection, rightfully so, they'll be like, thinking about your muscles doesn't do anything for you. And they're absolutely right. When I'm working out, I'm not thinking about the muscle at all. It's the last thing on my mind. I'm thinking about the tension in the muscle, right? This lamp, right? I got this lamp here. This light bulb will not turn on no matter how much I think about it. Okay, I can think about a light bulb all day long. It'll never turn on. But the second I put electricity through it, it turns on. And that's exactly what tension is. You're putting an electric current via your nervous system into your muscles. And so how do you improve this? Well, a lot of it is just simply trying to turn on the muscle. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's like, how do you make your muscle work harder? You try to make it turn on. It's through your concentration. Your mind creates that signal. The best way I know to do that is through overcoming isometrics. If you try to contract the muscle harder, your brain will figure out a way to condition itself and your nervous system to produce a stronger signal going to your muscle to make it contract harder. Dave chiming in with that. Love overcoming isometrics for warm-ups and finishers. Absolutely. Okay, put a pin in that though. The other day I did an isometric finisher for 20 seconds. I put it on my Instagram channel for my lats and biceps. Hadn't done an isometric for more than 10 seconds in a long time. I was like, okay, 20 seconds, here we go. Man alive, did my pack feel that one the next day. Wow, I was certainly fried out. They are a fantastic finisher. Esteban, all I really do for legs is different variations of squats. Is this enough, do you think? Should I also doing deadlifts, etc.? You know, there was a time when I would have said it was enough, but a lot of the research now coming out, Stronger by Science, has shown that maybe not quite enough for the hamstrings. We want to have some extension work. So deadlifts can work, kettlebell swings, bridges, isometric deadlifts, anything like that. I do think that one of the biggest things that people are missing, especially in the calisthenics world, is an extension movement, particularly hip extension, hamstrings working as well. Yes, squats work your hamstrings and your glutes, or at least they damn well should be. And we want to concentrate on making that happen. But if the squats are there, but you're not doing some extension work, put in some extension work as well. Couple more questions real quick before I jump back into multi-stage progression. Celia, hey Matt, can you give me advice on increasing squat strength? It seems it's the only movement pattern that I can't get stronger at. So remember the fundamental principle, my friends. You gain that which you challenge. So how do we gain squat strength? Well, we need to challenge the strength of our squats. So naturally, of course. So the first place I would be looking for is, are you squatting with sufficient resistance so that your muscles must generate more tension? Because that's really what strength is how much tension is in the muscle, is the intensity, how hard are they contracting. So you want to use methods that are making your muscles contract a lot harder. If they do, you will get stronger at it. So adding resistance, increasing the tension load on the muscle through the isometrics, that mind-muscle connection, and so forth that we were talking about. Use methods that challenge exactly that. You gain that which you challenge. Excuse me. Fro10, hey Matt, great to see you're still grinding and lacking in time. I've been looking at your micro workouts, especially the fantastic isometric ab workout. Oh, it is fantastic. That's why I called it as such. Out of curiosity, may I ask how much time your workouts are you doing daily? Oh, it varies greatly. It really, really does. Sometimes it's literally like today I was setting up for a session this morning with some friends of mine. And I got it all set up. I got all the equipment all out and everything. I was like, okay. And they're like, oh, we're stuck in traffic, 10 minutes. I'm like, 10 minutes, here we go. All right. And I got a pull chain workout, mostly pull-ups and stuff. And 10 minutes. A lot of times it's probably more around the 15 to 20 minute mark, depending on how many chains I'm addressing. And of course, if I go for a mountain bike ride, that could be hours and hours and hours and hours. But strength training, it's usually probably averaging about 15 to 20 minutes at a stretch. Emma's back again. Hey, Matt, again. Thanks. What can you recommend while sitting most of the day? Also, ISO I can do whilst trying to concentrate on classes. Oh, yeah, for sure. So here's the thing, is a lot of people get hung up on sitting. It's like, oh, what do I do sitting? Sitting's not the problem. Lack of squatting is the problem. Nobody ever got in trouble from sitting too much. It's a lack of squatting. I don't care if you're at a standing desk. If you're not squatting, you're still screwed. So try to get some squats in throughout the day. I don't care if it's literally just squatting down to pick up a pen or squatting down when you're adjusting something on the floor, whatever. If we can squat periodically throughout the day, that will go a long way for that. When you're sitting, that's fine. Some people I know like to set up an alarm or a little timer. So every 30 minutes or so, they get up and they stretch out, get their shoulders back, really stretch out the arms, get a little squat kind of thing. Little movements like that throughout the day are good, but don't worry too much about sitting. It's lack of movement that's getting us in trouble. One more from Esteban before we jump in. Do you have any tips for how to motivate yourself when you're feeling lazy and want to skip a workout? Oh, dude, talk about timing. Have you seen the latest video I put out this morning on the RDP channel talking about motivation? It's all about motivation. So I talked about acute motivation and chronic motivation. So acute motivation, that's like how you feel minute to minute. And sometimes you're just like, I'm tired. I don't want to work out. Just don't want to, I don't feel like it right now. It's cold out and stuff. That's an acute drop in motivation. And for that, we just want to get doing something, anything. I like overcoming isometrics for that because it has such a low barrier to entry. You literally just put your hands together and press and turn on your chest, and then you just kind of pull your hands apart. Here, get my shoulders turned on and back and forth. It's like, okay, you get the juices flowing. You get the energy flowing through the muscles and stuff. And you're like, all right, some push-ups on the countertop. All right, push-ups on the floor. Happens every single time. Start with a real low barrier to entry just to get moving in some way, shape, and form, and it'll grow and progress from there. Oh, let me get to this real quick here. I know I keep saying this. Michael Lopez, hey Matt, quick question. How slow is building muscle? Probably a lot slower than we'd like to think. So I always refer to Coach Sommer of Gymnastics Bodies. I believe it's Gymnastics Bodies. It's been a while since I've studied his work. And he talked basically, he's like, I don't see any point in measuring muscle growth any more frequently than once a year. He's like, because it just does not happen fast enough to make any measurable difference on the scale other than year to year. He's like, people come to me and they're like, I gained, weight in like 3 weeks. I'm sure it's muscle. He's like, it's not muscle. There's no way you're growing that quick. Now, when you're a beginner and you're making those beginner gains, maybe. When I started strength training, I gained like 10 pounds of muscle in 6 months. And it was noticeable. And that was really fast. Can I expect that of myself right now? Hell no. I'm 44 years old and I've been training for over 20 years. There's not a chance in hell I'm going to make gains like that. Hell, maybe even if I was on steroids. It's just I'm towards the peaker levels of my training career, what my body is potentially capable of. I've used a lot of that up. And the further you gain and the further you make progress there, the slower and harder it's going to come. It's like going up a ramp that gets progressively steeper as you get going there. So at first it's faster, but it's still probably a lot slower than you think. Always remember, when it comes to changes in weight from hour to hour or day to day is mostly all water. Week to week, or more realistically, month to month, it's changes in fat. And then annually or biannually is changes in muscle. And people know this. Coaches know this, and they will use it against you and manipulate you because they'll make you overeat. I'll see a lot of coaches do this. You got to eat big to get big. Force feed yourself lots of food. And then you're like 20 pounds heavier over the course of a few months. And you're like, yeah, gains. And it's like, no, dude, you're fat. You've gotten fatter. Like you're fooling yourself if you think a lot of that is muscle. That's why they call it a dreamer bulk. Dreamer bulk is where you just eat and eat and eat and pig out like crazy, and you gain a ton of weight. And they call it a dreamer bulk because if you think even a decent amount of that is muscle, you're dreaming. You're just getting fatter kind of thing. So muscle is one of those things of be patient with it. Instead, pay attention and appreciate progress in other areas. How do your clothes fit? What do you see in the mirror? That's the thing about muscle, is it has a very big impact on our appearance, even if it's not a big impact on our scale. Coach Wade wrote that article, or 2 articles, I think, on Dragon Door, which turned into his book C-Mass, the letter C, M-A-S-S, which basically was like how to pack on 10 pounds of muscle. And people are like, 10 pounds of muscle, that's nothing. 10 pounds of muscle, that's nothing. He's like, no, seriously, 10 pounds of muscle, you'll look different. You put on 10 pounds of muscle, you'll look different. So that 6 months when I was working out initially, I was lifting dumbbells and I put on 10 pounds of muscle, people were like, dude, seriously, what are you doing? Like, holy smokes, you looked in. My mother, I'm around her all the time. She's like, every time I see you, you look bigger. I need to buy you new shirts. That was barely 10 pounds of muscle. So how do you look? How do the clothes feel? And how is your performance too? Looking at that, when I was getting bigger and stronger from calisthenics, I put my hand on the floor and it's like, it was like solid. It's like, oh, wow, that's a lot stronger. Pay attention to those things. So anyway, let's get back to multi-dimensional progression, as I like to call it. So instead of having your focus in how many reps can I do and how much weight can I lift and things like that, or maybe a metric that we're measuring like how heavy am I, what's my weight and stuff like that, look at progression in many different directions and aspects. And this is where a lot more of an advanced approach to progression comes from. Because when you become more advanced, you become more in tune with the technical sides of fitness and especially your training. It's not just how much weight are you lifting, how much weight is on the scale, or how many reps can you do. It's how are you doing it? And that was one of the reasons why I started to make a lot more progress again when I came over to calisthenics from weightlifting. It actually wasn't anything to do with calisthenics. It had nothing to do with that. As fundamental approach to fitness teaches us, the method you do really isn't that important. But when I got down on the floor and I started doing push-ups, instead of thinking how much weight can I lift and how many reps can I do, I started thinking, how do I do this exercise better? How do I improve how well I'm doing it? More specifically, how do I just make the exercise harder so my muscles are working harder? So as a result, I started to look at more of a technical side of the exercise. So I started playing around with other aspects of progression, range of motion, for example. So instead of coming partially down, coming all the way down. Body position. So keeping my weight a little bit more forward, putting some more weight on my hands, keeping my arms in close, shoulders packed down and tight. All of these things made a very big difference. Tension control is another variable. Tension control is just, again, how are you engaging your muscles? How well are you engaging it? Fundamentally, I look at now all physical training as at the heart of it is how well are you using your muscles? I don't care if you're doing ping pong or powerlifting. The bottom line is how well are you using your muscles to do this activity? That's really what we're trying to do. Everything else is just a result of that. So whether I'm doing taekwondo, mountain biking, pistol squats, pull-ups, or even walking up a damn flight of stairs, my sole focus in all physical training is how well am I using my muscles? Am I using my glutes when I walk up these stairs? Am I keeping my shoulders packed when I throw this punch? Am I able to fully engage my hips when I do these shrimp squats? These are the things that I'm always looking at. And these are things also you can always improve, because when we take a technical aspect to progression, there's a million things you can consider. Stability, range of motion, body position, speed, tempo, all these things you can improve upon. But more importantly, you take it from a quantitative aspect of your training, reps and weight and stuff, and you move it into more of a skill-based of how well can I do this? And the great thing about skill is you can always do it better. I don't care what you're doing and how much you've done it, you can always do it better. In Taekwondo, my instructor always told us the story of a friend of his who said, all right, for the next year, I'm going to do nothing but a straight punch. That's the only technique I'm going to do, and that's the only technique I'm going to learn on. the end of the year, my instructor met him. He's like, how's that going? And he's like, dude, I am learning so much about this punch. And he's like, are you going to keep doing it? It's like, no, I'm going to go to the other techniques and stuff and round things out. But I feel like I could learn this for the next 100 years and still learn more about how to throw a simple straight punch. Literally the first technique you learn as a white belt. And this guy is a multi-level black belt. So if someone at his level can still learn more about the most fundamental exercises, we can all still learn more about the skill of push-ups, pull-ups, squats, the fundamentals. When you turn it into a skill level aspect, you can always get better at doing the techniques. And coming back down to that level of how well are you using your muscles? And the more of a technician you become, the more you will realize that plateaus are just not even existent. And that's consequently what the legs, the lower part of the little man in the Red Delta Project logo, the legs, they look like two little upside down triangles. That's what that figuratively or symbolically represents, is the technical aspects of fitness, the skillful components of it, not just working hard, but taking a technician's approach to it. Because when you do that, you'll never run out of things that you're working on and improving over time. All right, let's see if I can get caught up on some of these questions. Let's see here. Ask Gaming. Hey, Matt, how do you lower the chance of getting an injury while you're lifting? Well, there's a couple of things you can do. Always, of course, warming up properly, like we do in grind style calisthenics with both tension control and stability exercises. So lack of tension control in a muscle and lack of stability are the two biggest reasons why we get injured, because your muscles are the buffer to your joints. And 9 times out of 10, if there's stress on a joint, it means there's a muscle that's not handling that stress. So it's not engaged. By getting the muscles engaged, we have a better chance of getting the stress in the muscle. 2, the stability is keeping that alignment. When I hurt my knees skiing the other day, I went way out of alignment. Ski went one way, my knee went the other. Terrible alignment. That's why I got hurt. I could have the exact same force go through my legs, and much more force go through my legs all the time, and it's perfectly safe because the alignment was off. So tension control, stability control, like in grind style calisthenics, that goes a long way for that. 2 is always remember that pain is weakness. So we want to make sure that when we're doing exercise, a lot of times we don't suffer acute injuries like I had on my ski accident, where it's I'm fine. Oh my gosh, this hurts like hell. It's usually a little something. It's like, that kind of feels a little wonky on the knee. That doesn't feel so good. You got to address that right away. A lot of times it's little things like that that grow and get worse over time. Esteban, what do you think about working out while fasting is a good idea? Well, I usually don't eat while working out, so I guess technically that would be not eating while doing it. I mean, I technically if I'm on a mountain bike and I'm eating a granola bar, that's a different thing. Yeah, to hell with all of the stuff of like, fasting and working out. Some people are like, I feel great. Other people feel bad. The number one thing you want to look at is your energy level. Yeah, I was working out with a gentleman the other day, and past couple of workouts and stuff, he's like, my cardio is terrible. He'd get really tired and exhausted, after 40 minutes or so. He's like, I gotta sit down. I'm not feeling so good. Like my cardio is terrible. And after a couple of days of this, I'm looking at him and he's not breathing hard. Like, dude, it is not your cardio. Like you're not breathing hard. And if it was your cardio, you'd catch your breath and be ready to go. But his energy level was in the toilet every time. And he's a guy who's trying to lose weight. I'm like, I don't think you're eating enough to really support these workouts. It's like, I got to lose weight. I'm like, I know it's a balancing act. But if you're eating so little that after 20 minutes, your body's gassed and you have no energy for this workout, you got to get your energy, your more food. A lot of times also more carbs. A lot of times when people do this, they're like, I'm doing keto or I'm doing low carb or something. I'm like, yeah, but you're gassed out after 20 minutes. That your energy level is terrible. That's why here at Red Delta Project, we, the whole idea of like a healthy diet is based on how much you limit your diet is completely backwards. That's the worst thing to base a healthy diet on. Your diet's not healthy because you don't eat bread or because you do intermittent fasting. That stuff is a horrible approach to what a healthy diet is. There's nothing wrong with those, but I'm sure as hell not going to make that the basis of what a healthy diet is. God, no. Instead, the whole approach for dieting here at Red Delta Project is eat to satisfy. The whole point of a healthy diet is to satisfy your nutritional needs. And if you're not meeting that and your energy level is in the toilet, your diet sucks. Flat out. I don't care what the science says about fasting or low carb this or that. If your energy level is low when you're working out, you have a shitty diet. Full stop. You just need, so you got to make adjustments. It's fine to start with that stuff as a template, but bring your calorie level up a little bit. Have something to eat before your workout. Something with a little bit of simple sugars to it. Yes, sugar, straight sugar. I told my friends, like Sunbelt granola bars. Very simple sugar, digest like that, get into your bloodstream fast, gonna give you some energy for your workout. I recommend eating one of those things because if you can have a little bit more energy in your workouts, you're gonna crush it a lot harder. So that's what I would look at. It's like, who cares what they say about fasting this and fasting that, and here's how you fast with workouts. To hell with all of that. Look at your energy level. If your energy level's in the toilet, have something to eat beforehand. If it's fine, don't worry about it. You're good. Your energy level is what you should be basing your choices off of, not what your program is or what some expert Yahoo on the internet like me ever says about something. Doesn't matter what I think is good. What is good is what treats you good. All right. System Motor Man 21. Sounds like a Mega Man reference there. I like that. Hey, Matt, I'm starting calisthenics and I'm kind of fit. I'm 5'3", 145. Good. I can do 5 pull-ups. Awesome. One session. It's kind of hard. What other exercise can I do for my back other than pull-ups? Okay, so here we go with another aspect of progression. So one of the biggest reasons why people get stuck in a plateau is because they have that narrow progression mindset of this is what I need to do and this is how I need to do it. And they don't allow themselves the flexibility to change their training. Tomorrow, I've got a video coming out about why I purposely do not train in the quote muscle building rep range to build muscle. In fact, I usually avoid it. I used to have a mindset of I got to be in that hypertrophy rep range in order to build muscle. It's like 3 sets of 10 kind of thing. And now I avoid that and I go to the either ends of the spectrum. One of the reasons why is because when we focus on doing training one particular way, then other ways of progression are available to us, but we don't entertain them because we become emotionally attached to what we're doing. And if I said, okay, like back in the day, I was like 3 sets of 10. I have to do 3 sets of 10. That's the optimal way to build muscle. Someone's like, well, you should lift a little heavier. You'll get stronger. No, I can't lift a heavier weight because I won't lift as many reps. And therefore I won't be in the hypertrophy zone. So I never lifted a heavier weight. Or someone would be like, well, why don't you push it to like 12 reps or 15 reps? Let's build some muscle endurance, really get some of that metabolic stress going. Oh, I can't do that. So I'd always stop at 10 reps with the same weight every single time because it was quote optimal, but I wasn't allowing myself to do other things. So in this case, we're talking about pull-ups, 5 reps. Here's what you're going to do. There's a couple of things you can do. Jackknife pull-ups, for example. Okay, that's an exercise I recommend to a lot of people because it makes pull-ups easier. And as a result, you can improve your technique and tension control. A lot of times I do it because I need people to get their shoulders back and down, packing their shoulders instead of hunching up and doing pull-ups like this. So jackknife pull-ups where you have your feet basically supported on something like a chair. Sometimes you could have your I almost said opponent, not opponent, but your partner, gym workout buddy or something holding your feet. So you can do pull-ups off the pull-up bar. You bring handles or rings or something down low so you can have your feet on the floor. That's a good way to go about it. But as long as our mindset is pull-ups, 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 it's a calisthenics rut of doing pull-ups a certain way. You have opportunities to explore other things, but you're not allowing yourself to do that because it's like, oh, if my feet are on a chair, it's not a real pull-up. Screw it. You're grabbing, you're pulling, you're going up. It's a pull-up, okay? That's all you need. So I would recommend explore some of those. Explore some of those jackknife pull-ups. Also just rows, right? Rows and pull-ups fundamentally are the same exercise. People are like, they're not the same. Well, they should be. And if they're not, you're doing something wrong because fundamentally we're still dealing with the same thing. Elbow flexion, shoulder extension. It's just the range of motion's a little bit different. So rows are very good. You know, and again, people say I could do pull-ups because I have a pull-up bar, but I don't have something to do rows on. Again, NOSC suspension training equipment. The link is in the description, folks. That'll give you lots of availability for the jackknife pull-ups, for the rows and stuff. And then you can also piecemeal it out. That's one of the great things about suspension equipment is it allows you to hit your lats, your rear delts and your traps and your biceps piecemeal. Single joint stuff. So you could do rear flies, you can do your lat pull downs where you're coming down straight, you could do curls, very satisfying for a pump in the biceps. Highly recommend playing around with those things because that can give you more insight into what's weak. A lot of people are like, I can't do pull-ups, and they struggle to do rear flies. It's like, well, your upper back is not very stable. So of course you're not going to be very good at pull-ups. So let's do these rear flies. We'll build up your traps and your rhomboids and your rear deltoids and everything like that. And that'll carry over. We'll do the jackknife pull-ups. Now we're making progress because you're improving how well you can use your muscles. It always comes down to how well can you use your muscles. And then as that improves, then you're going to find those numbers on your pull-ups also going up. You'll jump on a pull-up bar like a month from now and be like, oh, wow, now I got 7. That's great. I haven't done a pull-up in, a regular classic pull-up in who knows how long. But because you improved how well you're using your muscles with the other exercises, you're still making progress. Let's see. Eggman, hey Matt, I'm able to improve in every region except my lower back, no matter what I do before feeling instability. What kind of progress should I implement? Okay, yes, I've addressed this plenty of times in the past. Listen up, you need to know this. No matter what you do, you will never strengthen your lower back. Why? Your lower back's not a muscle group. And you got your quadratus lumborum. It's a tiny little thing between your ribs and your pelvis, if I'm remembering my anatomy class correctly. But no, your lower back is a joint. And when we have stress in the joints, that means a muscle isn't doing its job. There's nothing you can do to strengthen a joint enough because there's nothing around a joint to strengthen. Instead, it's your glutes and hamstrings, so the muscles below, and the muscles above, traps and lats. Okay, so one of those is the real weakness. So the instability is actually either above your lower back or below your lower back. I'm willing to bet if you're talking about stability here, it's above. Shoulder stability, particularly. A lot of times lower back issues are actually shoulder issues. So you're probably not really packing your shoulders down and back enough while you're doing whatever the exercise you're feeling that instability with. And you're not engaging your lats, your lower traps, hell, your whole traps and stuff. That's what's probably not quite working quite as well. I would look into those areas instead. And so that parlays into my next lesson when it comes to making progress. A lot of times our ability to make progress has nothing to do with what we're actually trying to focus on. So my man here is like, lower back, lower back, lower back. Actually, it has nothing to do with your lower back. You're looking in the wrong area. That's what happened when I went to my chiropractor last year. And I was like, oh, my lower back, my hip, this, and I'm stretching this out. And he's like, maybe it's in the shoulder. I think it's like, actually, it's in your neck, Matt. He's like, you need to make your neck in a much better alignment. I was like, my neck? Are you kidding me? And he was totally right. I got my neck back. I put out Instagram images of my x-rays of how my neck totally changed in its structure and cleared up the issue very much. So that's a lot of times what happens with progress, especially in fitness related things like your weight, how much muscle you're building, general performance and stuff. We typically focus in one area and it's actually something completely different. 9 times out of 10 is the thing you think is addressed and isn't, or something that you're not really addressing, like the cardio junkie who's like doing tons of cardio, can't lose weight. Dude, it's your diet. It's like, I'm sure I eat fine. It's like, really look at your diet, okay? You got the workout part down, probably your diet. A lot of times if you're like, I can't build any muscle, I don't know what's wrong with me, I work out so much. Are you eating well? Are you eating enough? Oh, I eat fine. All I do is eat, carrots and broccoli. I'm like, no, your diet sucks. Like, come on, let's get some pizza in you, kind of thing. Or how's your sleep? How's your stress regulation? That sort of thing. Lots of times when it comes to making progress, it's the variables we're kind of sweeping under the rug and turning a blind eye to. And the stuff that we're like, yeah, I'm sure it's good. I'm sure it's okay. It's like, it's probably not okay. That's probably what we need to really focus on. Let's see what else I can help you folks with. A lot of good questions coming on here, folks. Thanks very much for stopping on by. Andre, Matt, do you ever use or recommend RPE for body weight exercises? How close to failure we should be pushing exercise? Oh, yeah. RPE, folks, rate of perceived exertion. So this is why a lot of times I talk about how Failure is more subjective than we think it is. It's not nearly as much of a solid, concrete barrier of how much we can do as we think, because I've just experienced it more myself, and I've seen it happen a million times where someone will say, this is all I can do. I can only do this many reps. And then they'll get in a different situation where they feel different emotionally. Their gym crush walks through the door, they're at a seminar, all eyes are on them or whatever, and suddenly they could do a few more reps. It's like, dude, you didn't change physically, but up here or even in your heart, something changed, and that's why you got more. So that's why I'm always telling people failure is usually a lot more subjective than we think it is. Keep in mind, too, that failure is also just relative to that exact set of circumstances for your exercises. So you can do push-ups to failure, but if you go down on your knees and do push-up knee, you can keep going. It's just for that very specific level of resistance. And that's why drop sets exist. You do curls with 30s, and then you can't do them anymore. You do them with 20s, and you can't do them anymore. Because every time you're reaching failure, you're not really reaching muscular failure. You're reaching the failure of your ability to keep doing the exercise at that resistance. It's not the failure of your ability for the muscles to work in general. So yeah, I'm a big fan of push yourself pretty darn hard, especially during the hypertrophy phase, finisher phase of grind style calisthenics. And that's something that we can really explore a lot with higher repetitions. Esteban is asking, what do you think about listening to music while working out? Does it get in the zone, or is it more of a distraction? It can be both. It really can. And it depends on your mood. Years and years ago, I remember I was having a great workout one time, and the music I was listening to, I just put on something, and this is how long ago it was. It was in my CD changer, right? And that's how long ago. I just like, whatever, play. And it was shuffling songs, and it was Frank Sinatra that was on. And I was having a great workout listening to Old Blue Eyes. And I don't know why it worked. I just felt really good. My mood was up. I felt really loose and relaxed and everything listening to Frank Sinatra. Consequently, I've also got a couple of, hard rock playlists. And sometimes it just feels like it's not the vibe I need. Like I'm angry and pissed off, and I had a bad day at work, and goddamn these, and it's distracting because my mind is not in a positive place. So when we're listening to music, or when we have these things, remember, we want to feel in a positive way. You can be positive listening to, death metal, or you can be negative listening to the same music. That's what you want to pay attention to, is to how do you feel? Do you have a positive emotional relationship to it? If you feel positive, you're going to have a good workout. If you feel negative, or it's making your mind go to other things off of your workout, it's a distraction. Pay attention to that. Awesome question. Very good. Very insightful. Gamer Christina, I can read, I swear. Hey, Matt, whenever I increase the weight or volume for a muscle part, then that muscle will develop a bruise. Interesting. Do you have any ideas on why muscles are bruising? Biceps, forearm, quads are bruising. That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I can guess what's going on as you're breaking blood vessels. That's interesting. Check your range of motion on that one. If you are using a big range of motion and your muscles are really elongated, and then you're making them engage, that might have something to do with it. Boy, that is interesting, though, because you have a lot of stress on your muscles, but I don't know what's causing it on your circulatory system. I'm afraid I don't really have much information for you. Your guess is kind of as good as mine, as I haven't really heard much about that. But try doing a shorter range of motion. See if that makes a difference. I'm wondering if you're just stretching like blood vessels and stuff out. Boy, that is interesting. Yeah, I'm afraid I don't really know. You try this, though. Keep going with the exact same workout program for a while, though. The repeat bout effect. It might be something you're trying a different exercise, and stress in the body is changing around. So if you keep doing curls, like the same tools, the same way, see if that helps. So you might have bruising at first, then a little less of a bruise the second workout, and then no bruising at all. It might be that. It's the same thing with like muscle soreness. The first time you do it, muscles are sore. Second time, maybe a little sore. Third time, not sore at all. It might be similar. I would try that and not have as much variation in your workouts if that's what's going on. Fantastic. Very good. God, the questions you guys are asking today is absolutely outstanding. Dave coming on. Hey, Matt, how would you, a suspension trainer for hip adductors, not abductors. So adductors are the inner thigh muscles that are pulling our hips feet together. So one of my favorites for this one, you don't need a suspension setup for this, is the side plank, where your top foot is resting on an elevated surface. Like we have these soft plyo boxes, or like a yoga block or something. Foam rollers work well for this. So you basically lay on your side, and your top foot, the inside of your foot, is pressed down on an elevated surface. You keep your bottom leg bent, and you lift up your hips. Very, very intense. So you may want that bent leg still on the floor to offer some support. Now, the key with this, though, that you have to pay attention to is make sure your hips are fully extended. So your glutes and your hamstrings are engaged. You don't want to have this V type thing going on with your body if you're looking down on top of you. You want a straight line, because if you have even a little bit of that V, you're going to put a lot of stress on the medial point of that knee on the top leg. And it's not necessarily a terrible thing, but it's uncomfortable, not really so good. So we want to have our hips fully extended, so you have a little bit more stress on the hamstrings, particularly your adductor magnus. That's one of the biggest adductor muscles in your lower body, and that is not only for adduction, but also hip extension. And that's where you want your stress. If you don't have much hip extension, it goes right into the knee. So like I said earlier, stress in a joint means a muscle's not doing its job. So fully extend those hips. And then if for a more advanced version, you could put that foot, instead of on an elevated surface, in the foot loops of a suspension setup. And that's going to be a good way to go about it. More information on that in the Grind Style Calisthenics book for lateral chain training. I'm sure I've got videos of that on the RDP channel somewhere. Okay, let's get more into plateaus here. Simply Calisthenics coming on. Like the logo, man. Hey, man, I'm stuck at 3-7 pull-ups. How can I surpass that? Anything else is increasing, but not my vertical pulling. Okay, great. Practical application here. So the number one reason why we cannot progress the number of reps we can do is because the reps you're currently doing are not good enough. Bottom line. So those 7 you're doing, great, but those 7 aren't good enough. So this is where we go back to our technical aspects. One of the best things, I mean, there's a million technical ways you can look at a pull-up. There's a million things that you can change. There's a million things you could potentially look at, which is why it's good to have a coach, because they can see exactly what you need. I could guess a million different stuff, and probably it's going to be just a guessing game. But here's how you can kind of see for yourself. You have 3 sets of 7, right? Those first pull-ups for the first set, pay attention to how you're doing them. Okay? The last pull-ups on the last set, what's different? What's changing on a technical level? Your body position, your speed, your range of motion. Usually with pull-ups, that's a big one. First one's chest getting to the bar. All right. Last one's chin is barely getting over. You got a gap between your hands and your chest. What is different between your first reps and your last reps? How is your technique eroding? Those changes are what you want to work on. That's exactly what you need. This is a little page out of the self-coaching playbook. What is eroding about your technique under fatigue? Those things that are changing, that's the thing you need to work on to get your reps up. Okay? If you're not really sure, set yourself up with a video camera, because you observe a lot by watching, says Yogi Berra. So watch yourself do those pull-ups. You'll see something change throughout that. So let's see, what else can we address here? Photon is coming on. Hey, Matt, how do you think you can actually tell if you're tensing your muscles harder if you have greater tension in them with isometrics? Just how badly it knocks you out, probably more tension. Yeah, it literally, like, so tension is a sensory thing. If I threw a bunch of jalapenos on a sandwich and you took a big bite out of it, how do you know the jalapenos are there? Funny story. That's exactly what happened to me. A friend of mine, she made me lunch for the day, and I had to wolf down, and we got some jalapenos. I'm like, I like hot peppers, sure, but we had roasted jalapenos, and I didn't know this, but when you roast a spicy pepper, it breaks down the cellular walls in the vegetation, so it releases much more of the capsaicin, which is the hot stuff in the hot peppers. So I wolfed down this sandwich, and I run out to my client, and for like the next 10 minutes, I'm like, oh God, I am in so much pain right now. I'm like chugging water, tears are coming down, I'm sweating, My client's like, are you sure you're okay? I'm like, oh, son of a biscuit. Wow. How do I know it was hotter, right? It's like, no kidding, sort of thing. It's the same thing with muscle tension. When you tense a muscle harder, you damn well better be knowing that. You should certainly feel it a lot. And that's why a lot of times when people are doing isometrics, they're like, well, how do I know if I'm getting stronger? Dude, if you're not sure, you're not. I'm a big believer that results should be very self-evident. Like what was it? Oh, today. So my group that I was training today, I gave them isometric squats. And someone asked before they did it, I was like, how do I know if my quads are working? I'm like, just do it, And they're like, but I'm not moving. How do I? I'm like, just do it. And she started and she's like, oh my gosh, my legs. I'm like, how do you know your legs are working? She flips me the bird. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. You should know those muscles are working harder. You should feel them working to a much higher level. And if you're like, but they're not, I'm not sure. It's like, well, then make them. That's the whole point of tension control. You make the tension go there by force through concentration and focus mentally. Oh, Gen Zim, product update. Matt got the bull worker, using it as a finisher, but am I getting some tendon? See, I got my bull worker right over there. It's on my shelf. Some tendon issues with it. Any pointers, tips where I'm erring? So yeah, look at your alignment. This is a big thing about isometrics that's very valuable. It's very good about helping you find alignment. I had a guy one time when I got my iso chain, and he had the bar like this, and I was like, okay, dude, and curl, and he went like that. And no, I'm not exaggerating. He literally was like this, and I was like, whoa, holy smokes. He's like, what? I'm like, whoa, we are way out of alignment with that. I'm willing to bet your bull worker use is something's getting a little out of alignment. Maybe you're pushing and you're starting to hunch up like that. And so you're putting the force from the muscles into the joints a little bit more. Try a level lower spring, or just have a less amount of motion on the bull worker, so a few numbers less, and go for a bit longer duration. So I think your intensity is just a smidge high. That's what I would guess. So look for how you're changing your body position. If nothing else, do it in front of a mirror. That can be very, very telling. Excuse me. And so, yeah, observe. A lot of times when we're like, how do I make progress technically? Watch yourself. The video camera on your phone is a great tool. Mirrors are a great tool. Watching yourself, the more self-aware you are about how you're technically doing the exercise, the more you're going to find those opportunities for technical progression. Okay. Gloria, hey Matt, is it possible to find an equal balance in terms of strength between the left side and the right side of the body? During pistol squats, my left side is stronger than the right one. Probably not. The body's not built to be ambidextrous. Your nervous system's not made to be ambidextrous. Even if you do get it pretty close, you're probably even then going to notice differences from one time to another. Like, oh, my right leg is my stronger leg, and you get it pretty balanced out. But then it's like, oh, no, now the other leg's stronger. Oh, no, now the other one. And you just kind of bounce back and forth. It's kind of like teetering in a canoe, right? You're never dead level and straight. You're always kind of adjusting and moving around kind of thing. So you're probably never going to be perfectly dead level set balanced, but getting close will get the job done. Andre coming on again. Hey, Matt, if I'm committed to train every day, 15 to 20 minutes using basic body weight exercises, squats, rows, push-ups, very good. How many sets should I do daily? Should I go close to failure or close to? So this is a good thing that I talk to a lot is when people say, how many sets should I do? I'm like, enough, but no more than that. I always use the analogy, it's like driving a nail into a plank of wood. Carpenters never worry about how many times they strike a nail. They hit the nail until it's driven into the wood, and then they stop hitting the nail. They're not going to hit it according to some arbitrary number of, I need to hit this 10 times. Because if it's driven in 8 times, why hit it another 2? You're wasting time and energy. But at the same time, it's like, well, you should be able to hit it in 5 times. You hit it 5 times, but it's still not flush. You don't just walk away. You're like, I still need to smack it a couple more. So that's why I'm always telling people, forget about the number of sets. Do the number of sets necessary for the objective of the exercise. So in grind style calisthenics, we have 4 phases. Each one has a specific objective. Do however many sets you want or feel is needed to accomplish that objective. Sometimes it's going to be 2, sometimes it's going to be 9. Who knows? But that's one of the reasons why I don't like assigning numbers, because no matter what number I give you, it's probably going to be wrong most of the time, because the chances that it's going to be spot on is completely like up in the air. Now, when I train clients, a lot of times I give them 3 sets. In 3, 4, it's usually a good ballpark area and stuff like that, but certainly don't hold yourself to that. So with the tension phase, you're just trying to get the muscles to engage. Stability phase, you want everything to connect together and feel nice and stable. Strength phase, you want to work the muscle really, 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 really hard, and you're practicing that. And then hypertrophy phase, you're just frying out the muscle. So however many sets it takes to do that. Now, typically, as you get better, it's not going to take too much, but there's so many circumstances that are going to change how many sets you should do on a day-to-day basis that it'd be foolish to adhere to any sort of set number. Instead, use the number of sets you need to get the job done. Oh, another lower back question here. Hey, Matt, sometimes I strain in my lower back when sitting down a lot for studying after doing work behind my computer. Do you have any tips on how I can avoid this? Live streams are great. Thank you very much. So I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts you have an anterior pelvic tilt. So you're crushing your lower back. So you're taking your pelvis and you're doing that. So glutes and hamstrings, upper back, bridge work, my friend, bridges. You can check out, just search on my channel, bridge exercises. That'll give you a good place to go. But yeah, you probably have, it's probably not a strain. It's more just a compression. You're just building up the stress there in that area. So glutes and hamstrings are probably a good place to go. Dave is coming on asking, hey, Matt, doing your push-pull squat and ELF alternation workouts. Very good. But as a heavy, light, medium format. Excellent. Only a week so far. Keep us posted on results. Yeah, please do. So one of the ways that we can make progress, again, is don't keep doing things exactly the same way. Because when you do that, you're limiting your ability to explore progression in other areas. So what Dave here is doing, and very smartly, is with his workouts, he's changing up how much resistance he has. He's going heavy, then he's going medium, and then he's going light. I'm assuming maybe every other workout you're changing it, or maybe even during the same workout. That's fine. But when we give ourselves permission to do exercises in a different way, we unveil ourselves of the potential to train our progressions in different ways. And that gives you a lot more ability versus I always train the same way because it's the best way and it's the optimal way every single time. Best way is limited. We want variety. Simply Calisthenics coming on again. He's like, what do you think of switching rep ranges monthly? Yeah, so this is exactly what Dave is doing. Is it beneficial to increase the reps and weight? Absolutely. So again, the video I have coming out tomorrow, why I avoid the hypertrophy rep range, the muscle building rep range, is we want to explore the work capacity of the muscle in both time and tension. So changing things up gives you the ability to do that. Very beneficial. Also makes training a hell of a lot more fun. Steven, hey Matt, what do you think about plyometrics and hill sprints for exercising the legs? Thank you for all I've learned from you. Greets from Germany. Hey, fantastic. I love Germany. Leonberg and Passau are some of my favorite places. Of course, Munich and Stuttgart. I went to the Porsche Museum there. One of my favorite places on earth. Absolutely. But as always, it comes down to training for what? The legs are like Swiss Army knives. They've got a million different variables. They can be strong. They can have endurance. They can have power. They can have static strength. They can have abilities in a million different ways. So the question to always ask ourselves whenever we're training, especially the legs, is what do we want our legs to do? Now with plyometrics and hill sprints, speed, power, explosiveness, awesome, great, wonderful. If that's what you want to get out of your training. But what do you want from your training? That's where we always start off with. So plyometrics and hill sprints are great for training your legs to get you good at plyometrics and hill sprints. And then it's about, are you going after that type of ability? Quick question till 10. What rack do you have behind you? That's a Dragon Door Bodyweight Master. Shame they don't make them anymore. But I have those in plenty of my videos. Frotan asking again, hey Matt, do you know why one could struggle keeping your posterior tilt during push-ups? I've noticed as I go down and subsequently rise up during a push-up, it changes to an anterior tilt. Yeah. Most likely ab strength, not enough tension in the abs. So your abs and your glutes, your hamstrings too to a degree, they create that pelvic tilt. So your glutes and your hamstrings aren't engaged, which it's a coordination thing. Keeping your butt engaged during push-ups can take some practice, but your abs are probably also loosening it as well. That's why you have people when they do push-ups, they'll come down and then they'll kind of feel like they're sealing. You know, sometimes people do push-ups like this, where their legs are kind of still and they're just bending and they're like doing an upward dog kind of thing with their push-up. It makes the push-ups a hell of a lot easier, which they're like, look at me, I can do 100 push-ups. I'm like, yeah, but why do push-ups the easy way? That's not going to be very effective for helping you get much stronger. A couple more real quick to finish off. Hey, Matt, training every day. Do I have to vary my exercises? I cannot do pull-ups. I cannot do pull-ups and dips, so it would be very difficult to do anything more than push-ups and bodyweight rows. Yeah, change it with whatever you want. As long as you got the fundamental movement patterns, who cares what you're doing? And push is push, pull is pull. Whatever exercises you want to do, that's perfectly fine. It's the movement patterns that matter, not the exercises. So as long as you're pushing, as long as you're pulling, you're getting the job done. All right, Dave, to finish this off, hey, Matt, doing different exercises each workout, speaking of which, example, tabletop rows, light, single arm rows, medium, jackknife, pull-ups, heavy for pull chains. So yeah, Dave here is, this is a great example. So this is one of the great things about progressive calisthenics is when we adjust our resistance, we are adjusting our technique. And that opens the door for potential for many different types of progression. So when Dave has got his table rows for his light range, he can work on his glute activation, his hamstring activation, keeping his arms in, his shoulders packed because he's doing table rows. Now, with single arm rows with his medium, now he has the technical ability to create that contralateral stability where he's working more with one arm. Is his shoulder coming up? Is he keeping things tied in? How is there a difference between the right and left side? Remember, I talked about contrarian types of assessment, where it's like, what are you doing in your first reps versus your last reps? How is that different? Well, you can also do that left and right. So as he's doing rows on one arm, he can be like, all right, this is how it looks and feels and performs on one side. Then he does on the other side, and like, that's a little different. It's not as much in the lats, or maybe it's a little bit more in the, like, why is it different? Use that to assess what's different. Then you can, again, make more technical progression there. And then with his jackknife pull-ups, he's got now the vertical. So he's got another technique. It's still pull chains, still the same muscles. But it could be like doing the jackknife pull-ups. It's like, it's all bicep. Oh my God, it's all biceps. My back isn't even working. Well, why the hell not? It's still the same fundamental movement pattern. It shouldn't be very different. Why is it different? A good opportunity to explore the technical differences, to learn what's different, and therefore make more progress and opening up the door of progression. So Dave is very smart to be training in that way. Edge, hey Matt, this question might be slightly off topic. How can I work my medial deltoids while doing push or pull raises without the Y raises? They're already working. Don't worry about it. The whole idea of you need something special for your medial deltoids is from the world of bodybuilding, almost a complete myth. Trust me, there's nobody in the world that has the front and back built up and nothing in the middle. It's physiologically impossible. Don't worry about it. One more. Hey, Matt, quick question. Thoughts on walking for fat loss support? Thanks. Fantastic. I love walking for fat loss. Empirically, and anecdotal evidence is very strong. A lot of people I know who've lost a good amount of weight and have kept it off make walking a big part of their program and their staple. Huge fan of walking. And I know a lot of times you're like, you can't burn that many calories working, and the science showed blah, 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 blah. I don't give a damn. You walk, you lose it. You know, and largely because walking is something you can do for a very long period of time, and you can do it very frequently, so you spend a lot of time being active. And when it comes down to burning a lot of fat and calories, time is the biggest factor that makes a difference. The more frequently, the more time you spend, basically the more time you spend being active, the easier it is to lose weight and keep it off. And walking is by far one of the best exercises to really make use of that time factor. So there you go, folks. Remember the sponsor for today's episode. I referenced a lot of different exercises. They're all a lot easier to do with NOSC suspension training equipment. Link is down below. Very much let me know if you have questions about that, as well as anything here on technical progression as well. And I appreciate everybody coming on, asking questions, fantastic questions today. Really do thank you for coming on. Very insightful. If you have further things you need, DM me at Red Delta Project on my Instagram channel, and we will talk about the more things next week. Till then, be fit and live free.